Gentlemen and the World Wide Web, my name is Chris Gerard. I'm going to be your host today for this conversation about the business of fun. And the folks here at Battery 621 and the Public Works have been working on this concept of the business of fun, which is one that I completely back, and I think a lot of people do. This idea of taking the things that you're passionate about and combining that with your job, your occupation. So that's going to be the basis of everything that we're talking about today. And the real reason that we're all here is that we've been fortunate enough to enlist some very talented people who have taken this concept to the just world class, just huck the football as far as you could, and are succeeding at their passions and living their dream and a lot of our dreams too. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Macklemore and Zach Quillen. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having us. How you guys doing?
So these guys are on fire right now, traveling all over the world. Tour, I think, as Zach just said, 75 different sold-out stops, sold 2.5 million downloads of Thrift Shop, and are really taking this whole concept of their passion to the next level, like we said. So congratulations. They just came from, some of you probably saw Late Night with David Letterman last night, and then tonight they're doing a sold-out show at Red Rock. So it is definitely riding the lightning for these guys right now, for sure. So what we're going to do today is, in addition to about 100 folks that we have in the room, we're going to have a casual conversation about the business of fun. We also have the World Wide Web watching, and we've got I think seven or so folks who we'll go to for questions. And it's going to be an interactive conversation, so it's sort of exciting in that way that we got live people right here, we've got the internet, and then and you two guys. So
cool.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And congratulations are in order. Ben is recently engaged. Can you get a round of applause for that? Pretty awesome. So that's the next adventure for you. I just was married recently myself.
Is it possible to turn off the heist while we're talking?
In the background, yeah. We've got a little background.
There's no way I'll be able to pay attention to anything. I'll be like, oh, we should have mixed that just a little bit differently for this type of environment. Cool.
That's
so much better, sorry.
That's a great segue, because the first thing that we're going to talk about is the heist. This is the album that you dropped in October.
Yeah. And
the one that has really just exploded more than you guys imagined. Is it at the expectations? Like, what you're going through right now is a very, very interesting and unique experience for artists. It's what people dream of. Can you tell us a little bit about this time in your life right now? I mean, this album's only been out for 5 months, 6 months, not even.
Yeah, it's completely exceeded my expectations of what I thought the project would do, what I hoped it would do. First week sales, you know, we sold 78,000 our first week, and we were expecting to sell around 25 to 30,000. So that kind of set us off for just like, this is a lot bigger than any of us anticipated. Very exciting week. A lot of, you know, coming in at number 2 on Billboard independently is something that, you know, we were all really proud of. We decided to put out the album ourselves, and it kind of worked. And we didn't know if it was going to work. We didn't know what the reaction was going to be. I think that you have, on one side, you have things like numbers that kind of act as kind of, you know, marks in how far you're going up like the hierarchical ladder of success. And you also have something, which is the art, and wanting your art to resonate with the people that are hearing your art, the fans that were there, the people that are hearing you for the first time. You hope that you have an album that garners critical acclaim as well as selling units. And you hope that you have both. And I think that with the heist, it turns out that you know, we've had success in both of those areas. But the most important for me is the art. And that's something that I am very proud of on the heist. And I think that, what's going on right now is interesting because we have the #1 song in America now for the second week in a row. No, I'm not saying that to be like, look at what we've done. Ha ha. I'm saying that because I'm still really fucking surprised that has happened. And when we made Thrift Shop, we made the album, I didn't think that there was any chance that we would have a shot at commercial radio whatsoever. Like, if we didn't sign a major label deal, literally in my head, I didn't think that there was a percentage of a chance that it would take off at radio. And it has. And it's a weird thing to, it's weird right now. It's weird to be recognized in public as kind of like the thrift shop guy right now. I didn't anticipate that. And once the record kind of takes off to the level where it has, where you've sold, you've gone double platinum and it's not showing any signs of slowing down, it's very exciting, but at the same time, it's a little bit scary. Like, what the hell did I sign up for? I can't turn back now. And it's a transitional period. It also, life feels completely the same as it did a month ago or as it did 3 months ago. I mean, things are moving. Like, there's more articles being written in press and there's more attention. But in terms of where I'm at in my life, like, everything is the same. And yet, the attention is so different. And you're the same person. And yet you have the #1 record in America, and that's bizarre and strange. So I'm adapting to that.
I liked what you said, Ben, though, about, underneath it is, for you, is really the art, and you first came to my attention through a mutual friend of ours, Chase Jarvis, and, back ways now, 2009 or so, and you were on his show, Songs for Eating and Drinking, and you did a song that at that point was called Air Jordans, that is actually on this Wings. And I mean, that's, we're working on 4 years ago, you've put your heart and soul into this album. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has seen that clip, if you look it up, Chase Jarvis, Songs for Eating and Drinking, Macklemore, and it's Ben with a piece of paper, really busting this out for one, I assume for one of the first times.
It was the first time, man.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about the event. And I woke up from a nap, and it was like 15 minutes until it started, and I printed off the last thing that I had written, which was Wings, which was then titled Air Jordans, because I had just woken up from a nap and had no idea what to call it. But yeah, it was the first time.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up is just that, at that point, I mean, you were not, moonlighting. I mean, you were a professional musician at that point. You were making.
No, I was fresh out of rehab and living in my parents' basement.
All right, we'll go back to that for sure. But you had made a choice to be a musician. I mean, your art was what you were pursuing full time.
Drugs and then art.
Right, drugs then art. Right.
No, at that point, yes, I had stopped smoking and drinking, and I was just trying to get kind of back on my feet.
And that, I mean, the transition from that point to today is rather dramatic. But what you're saying, what I'm picking up, and how it relates to the business of fun is that underneath it, here you are double platinum, and then you were waking up from a nap. But underneath it is really your art and your craft. And I think that's important for people who are interested in this idea of the business of fun. That here's Ben saying, Macklemore is saying, hey, even when you're there, you still have perspective on that. And it sounds like, to take it back to your parents' basement, that kind of pulled you out of that time period in your life as well. Could you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, since you mentioned it, as far as that time period and sort of the struggle as an artist.
To go back even further, I think I've always been the type of person that with drugs and alcohol, I had no moderation ever since I first started, like 15 years old. So I also wasn't the type of person that could create while being, high on weed and drinking alcohol. And I smoked weed. And, once I was smoking weed, it was like a wake up in the morning till go to bed, pass out thing. Wake up the next morning, smoke the roach, and call the drug dealer and wake him up at 9 o'clock. It was just that type of cycle. And so I wasn't making music, and it continued to get worse. And I went to treatment, got out, and it was really kind of a rebirth for me in terms of just, I get another shot at this. If this doesn't work now, I'm gonna have to go and pursue something else. And that's a scary place for an artist to be. I always had this faith. Somebody asked me today, what was it that kept you going when it wasn't popping off, when you were broke? Like, what was it that kept that artistic spirit going? And for me, it was this faith that if I did get sober, if I could get sober, that I would have a career making music. I didn't know that it would look like this. I didn't know that it would look like what it looked like 2 years ago, but I felt like I could sustain myself off of my art. But getting out of treatment, that was a dark year. It was all on the line. It was very much, if this doesn't work, I'm gonna go get a 9 to 5 and do something that I probably am gonna hate doing and resent, a good portion of my early 20s for not handling my shit. And very blessed the fact that it worked out, but it was very dark and a depressing time. And that's when Ryan and I were making the Verses EP.
And it's worth noting that Ryan Lewis is obviously not here right now. He is actually over at Red Rocks.
They look a lot alike, though, so it's all good.
We're good. Yep. Well, I already said my funny thing and you didn't hear it, so it's fine. So I'm not going to do it again. And I'm not Ryan.
This is my manager, Zach Quillen.
And Ryan is over at Red Rocks right now. What he said to me was, I got a lot of LEDs to figure out.
Yeah, Ryan is a jack of all trades and does all sorts of things. And right now, one of them is standing on stage at Red Rocks, making sure it all looks and sounds perfect. So that's where he is.
And maybe that's a good segue to talk about, your partnership with Ryan and with Zach. And you just mentioned when you came out of that time period that Ryan was a part of that. And when did you hook up with Zach? And how did you guys all collaborate to make this what we're enjoying as the Heist and beyond?
Well, Zach and I met at South by Southwest maybe 4 years ago. And I knew who Zach was. He booked a bunch of groups. He was a booking agent at the agency group. And basically, if you're an artist, in order to get shows, in order to travel, in order to accumulate some sort of fan base, an imperative step to that process is getting a booking agent. And it's difficult to get a booking agent because it's one of these things that, like, I was taught, like, you can't ask a booking agent to book you. Like, that's very taboo. Like, you don't do that. They need to come to you. So you're, like, out there and you're taking your shows in sports bars and coming to Colorado and performing in front of 75 people at weird restaurants, and you're like, this is not a career. I want to be playing, the Fox Theater and Bluebird, and, you have to pay those dues. And Ryan and I, we're booking our own shows and going through people in Colorado and in different parts of the country for a long time. And I met Zach, and he eventually kind of just, you can probably speak on it, but, paid attention to what we were doing and what we were slowly building. And one day called me, and it was the call that really changed my life in a lot of ways. Because Ryan and I had been grinding so hard, doing it ourselves, and that was kind of the, it wasn't this like immediately, like, Zach wants to book me now, I'm gonna be famous. It took a long time for it to actually kind of pop off. But that was the first kind of step in getting validated on that level. And since then, we worked together for what, a year until you started managing me? And I didn't have a manager. Ryan and I didn't have management. And Zach was our sole booking agent. And we had a show in Seattle, and Zach approached me and said, I was talking to him about I need a manager, and he was saying, well, it's funny, I don't mean to put you in an awkward situation, but I've been thinking about, what would it look like if I was to manage you guys? And it immediately was like, that makes complete sense. So he's been managing us for the last 2 years, and is a very, we run a very small team. It's me and Ryan and Zach and my fiance Trisha, and it's the 4 of us as just kind of this tight-knit family, this nuclear family, and we have a bigger family too, but in terms of running our business, we're the 4 people that are really kind of making decisions at the helm of this business. And we act as a record label, kind of the 4 of us. But that's kind of Zach and I's history.
Yeah, that's, they have, the boys here at the Business of Fun have this analogy that's called the aircraft carrier analogy. It seems confusing, but it makes sense. It's that, there's 5,000 guys that run an aircraft carrier for 100 pilots, that there's this huge support system behind any of the things that are out front, the people that are out front. So, you and Ryan are out front, but Zach's, sort of in the boiler room sometimes. And I think how that relates to what we're talking about today is that if you have a passion, you don't necessarily have to be the MC. You don't necessarily have to be, the double platinum artist. That there are other ways, and Zach, maybe you can speak to that. I mean, you're clearly in this family. You guys all have to be incredibly passionate about what it is that you do, and what your role is. So Zach, maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like Ben, what we have in common there is that I was never going to be satisfied or happy with a 9-to-5, a traditional 9-to-5. I got fired from like every job I had in high school for having an attitude problem, and it ultimately was that I didn't want to work for anybody but me. And always had a passion for music, but not necessarily the other things that you need talent-wise to be out front and be up in center. And so this was as close as I could get. I wanted to stand as close as I could to people like Ben and use the talents that I had developed over the years to help them achieve what they want to achieve and ultimately achieve what I wanted to achieve alongside. And so I never saw any other option. And if you know anything about getting into the music business, it's especially at first, there's nothing glamorous about it. While Ben was performing in front of 8 people in Omaha, I was making like $22,000 a year living in New York City, barely coming up with money to buy groceries. So similar path that way where you just have to love it. It has to be everything for you. And I ultimately didn't care. Like, I was totally fine to be broke in New York as long as I got to stand, next to these super talented people that were making music that were changing people's lives. I didn't care about really anything else.
Yeah, I think you touched on that idea too, Ben, earlier about, that there's this perception of the glamour of it, but really there's a grind, and that you do have to pay your dues. And that is sort of intrinsically related to the level of your passion, because if you're not passionate about it, you can't be committed to whatever it is, whether it's sport or art or music. How are you going to be committed to it when it really is like kicking you in the balls every day, And you guys have both been through that, and I think that that's an important part of this, in terms of the business of fun, is that, in order to have your passion be your occupation, you do have to go through paying your dues in one way or another.
Yeah, and in that process, it doesn't stop. That never lets up. I'm off like an hour of sleep right now coming from New York, and we do Red Rocks tonight and fly out at 6 o'clock in the morning, which means that we're back at the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch the flight. Looks like we might be going to do something tomorrow night down in New Orleans. Who knows? Like it's more of a grind than it ever has been. So, in response to the business of fun, a lot of it isn't fun still. But it is my life's work. Like, this is what I've always wanted, and you need to constantly be reminding yourself that as you evolve, because if you're not grateful in those moments, like, sure, I might have got an hour of sleep last night, but I was on David Letterman, and I never thought in my life I would be on David Letterman, and he didn't have any idea who we were. That's okay. He didn't know who we were. Told me to put a jacket on, which was funny, Dave. But you have to be grateful. You have to be grateful for the opportunities that you get, or you could be making a shit ton of money and be number one, and all that stuff can happen, and you're not in the business of fun. You can be an ungrateful bastard and be having all these like critically acclaimed things happening to you at the same time. So it's a matter of being grateful regardless of where you're at. And we're not going to stay number one forever. There has to be something. You have to come down. We have to make another album. We have to tour. Or you can look at it like we get to come down and feel what that's like. We get to make another album, and we get to tour. And it's just about kind of how you apply your mentality to whatever situation you're in.
And how do you keep your energy up in that? I mean, whether it's 4 years ago when the grind was a little bit more like, living in New York City.
A lot of this. Resc water.
It's rescue water.
Yep, that.
Yeah.
This stuff, man, all day. Can I drink this? It says the anti-hangover. If I don't have a hangover, can I?
No, there's all sorts of good stuff in there. I think like prickly pear and milk thistle and stuff like that.
Prickly pear?
Yeah. Extract. Anyway.
All right.
We are now going to have 400 bottles of that show up to my front door.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it.
Outside of rescue water, what is it that you pull on? Because you play with so much energy every single time that I see you. Whether or not it's at a small venue or a big venue, it's clear you're putting so much of yourself into it. I mean, and a lot of times there are actually personal stories that you're telling. So that just comes out of your performances, and you're doing that day in, day out. What do you reach to? What do you go to in your bag to make sure that you're not coming off as tired, or even when you are feeling tired?
In terms of the stage, I don't really have a choice. This last tour was tough. I actually had pneumonia for I don't know how long, a good portion of the tour. I didn't know that I had pneumonia. I was just really tired and sick for like 2 months, and I didn't know why I wasn't getting better. Coming to places like Salt Lake City, Denver, Red Rocks, they're very challenging because of the altitude. It's, you dry up. You guys are like have adapted to it living here, but for me, I come here and immediately like my lips just turn white and my pale hands get paler, and I get all red in the face, and I become a very unattractive honky very quickly. But when I get on the stage, there's no I have to go 100% of what I can do. It's just how I'm wired. It's probably how I end up with pneumonia, but I don't know how to answer that other than it's just what I have to do.
And do you feed off of each other when you're on the road so much? What do you do, Zach? When the grind starts to try to speak to this idea of people who are trying to achieve in their lives some small measure of what you guys are living, and they're grinding also.
Yeah, I mean, I don't spend all my time out on the road, thank God. I couldn't do what he does. I mean, there were moments during this last tour where I was telling him he should cancel the show. But it's not in him to do that. You know, he has to go out there. He thinks about everybody that's standing in line. He thinks about the bartenders that'll lose work that night, and and pushes on. But for me, when I am out on the road or just around Ben and Ryan generally, I think I just try to bring perspective when I can and try to be a calming presence and try to be a sounding board for what they might be going through or feeling or dealing with in the moment.
Zach's very good about listening to us bitch, is basically what he's saying.
I listen to a lot of complaining. That's not true at all. Really, we kind of give that to each other. Ben and I have a great relationship. Last night we spent 2 hours just connecting and talking about culture and society and life and music and personal stuff. And it's that part of our relationship that I think fuels everything else, and it's why we're able to have a good sound, smooth running business, is the kind of the personal connection that's there.
And when you guys are in those conversations, or as a segue, influences, you're talking about other things you're seeing out there in the world, whether that's art or other music. Can you share with us some of those influences today, and some of the things that help bring you up that you really paid attention to? Because we all need to have mentors and sort of that aspirational influence.
Yeah, I try to pay attention to art outside of hip hop. I don't do a very good job of doing that, but when I am paying attention to art that's not just hip hop, I am oftentimes inspired in a way that I can't get if I just go to like the same 4 hip hop blogs that I go to every day. Like yesterday, I watched a concert film from David Byrne of the Talking Heads, and it's this show that he did probably in the 80s. And just watching somebody who's really, I didn't know anything about David Byrne or the Talking Heads. I recognized some songs as I was watching this film, but he comes on stage with just a boombox and presses play, and it's just him with the boombox. And as the show goes on, he adds a bass player and a guitar player and some dancers and a drummer, and it turns into this whole huge set, huge production. And it's watching things like that, great minds, people that are thinkers, that want to challenge what a show looks like, want to challenge the audience to really be engaged within what they're performing and thinking about it in a different way. I think that, I've been thinking about our show, and I'm really happy with the show that we put on. I'm really happy with what we can deliver, but I think we could do better. And I don't know that I can do better if I'm only checking out hip hop blogs. Because for the most part, rap concerts suck. And you need to be inspired by other mediums, whether that's going, when I was writing The Heist, I was, taking walks in graveyards and trying to write at the art museum and, buying books and, reading a couple chapters and putting it down and picking up a different book, just trying to constantly be inspired by culture and getting that spark that can lead to a new song. Because if I'm only listening to hip hop music, if I'm only, living my day-to-day life the same every single day, constantly, there's no fuel to create something brand new. And that's how I stay.
Yeah.
You have to be able to live. You have to be able to experience life to have something new to write about. I don't want to write The Heist again. The Heist was a moment in time. I'm a very conceptual writer. I can't write those same songs again. I need to have new experiences to draw from to be able to put into my art.
Got it. That's great. I think we're going to go to some questions. Are we going to go to the folks on the internet, or are we going to go to the people in the audience? Audience?
Audience, yeah.
Audience. We're going to mix it up, though. Remember, that's what's disruptive about this whole thing, is that we got people from all over the country. But why don't
What's up, internet?
Yeah, what's up, internet? We got like 7 people
You guys
hanging
are
out there.
serious?
Are they
On the
real?
internet.
Yeah. Can you guys smile or show you're live?
Put up
Oh,
a peace sign.
maybe
Do
they're-
something.
Yeah, I think they might be frozen.
I don't think they're real.
Yeah, they're definitely
They're
not
not
real.
Those are Facebook.
All right, we're gonna
photos.
go to some of the live people right in front of us first. So let's. Do you guys have a? All right. I guess I'll bring the mic out to you.
Thank you. Hi. I want to know, like, if you could choose one song out of any of the songs that you have written for the world to hear, what would that song be and why?
I'd probably say right now, and hopefully it will change, because I write new songs and it evolves, but in 2013 it would probably be Same Love.
All right.
That song carries a message that I want to be heard around the world, and I think it's an important message. It's a message of tolerance, of equality, of compassion, of understanding, of pushing ourselves and our own bias and our own stereotypes. And I think that that's my highest potential as an artist, is to write songs. Anyone's highest potential is to write songs that have an impact on society, that have an impact on people's lives, that can create dialogue within other people. You know, Same Love is not a song that's like, you listen to it and I want you to immediately agree with everything that I say on that song. I don't want you to feel that way out of any of the songs that I write. Everyone interprets music differently and messages differently. But what I hope is that it facilitates dialogue, that people listen to a Same Love and then have a conversation, or reevaluate the words they use, the language they use, or their, you know, potentially their own set of beliefs, and retrace the lineage of why they are the way that they are. That's essentially the greatest tool of music, is for us to examine who we are, find our truth, and evolve. And I think that Same Love falls into that category.
Awesome. You know, I think we're going to jump. We'll come back to you. We're going to jump to I saw Grant up there on the internet. We got a
Grant.
question. Grant, what's up, buddy?
Bowen.
So, Grant, you got a question for us?
Yes, I'm coming at you from San Francisco, California. I know you guys are heading over.
Grant, we
to
can't hear you. Hold on. Just hold on 1 second. Are we going to get any audio on them? It's just out. Okay, well, I happen to know what Grant's question was going to be, so we'll answer it for him for the internet. Sorry, buddy. We can see you. Can you hand signal or something? Okay. When are you headed to the Bay Area?
A couple days, actually.
Yeah.
What are we doing in the Bay Area?
There's a show at the University of San Francisco at the end of the week. That would be the next time.
I'll check that
We'll
out.
get Grant into the show.
Yeah, Grant, do some sign language with your +1, and we'll get you.
All right, from the internet. We're going to go back out to the crowd.
Okay, so I'm completely inspired by your music, and one of my favorite songs is 10,000 Hours. I also really like Make the Money. I listen to it probably a few times a day. But
Thank you.
I really want to know, so Malcolm Gladwell in the book, he talks about how if you really dedicate yourself to something, invest 10,000 hours, you can kind of get to that level of expertise and like master your craft. But he also really connects that blood, sweat, and tears, the passion, with kind of like a serendipitous opportunity, if you will, like a moment, a magical moment where the universe aligns and allows you to either commit to that craft, or like show that you have invested yourself so thoroughly in that. And I would love to know if there was a moment or a period in your life that holds true to that ideal.
Yeah.
I thought about this one for a while.
Yeah. Great question. It kind of gave me like that brought up some emotion, actually. Like, yeah, there was a moment. I was I was in treatment, and I had tried, as I said before, I tried my whole life to get sober, and didn't know how to do it, and always felt that I had words to share with people. I didn't know on what scale that would be. I didn't know if that was like 100 people or 100,000. I didn't know what that meant, but I felt in my heart that I had something to share, and that there was a veil, and I couldn't see. And in treatment, I had this moment of I was accumulating these tools to stay sober, and part of the guy that was kind of leading me through the steps in treatment was a practicing Buddhist monk, and we went to a monastery, and we were doing this kind of this chanting and walking in a circle, walking in some figure 8 circle, and earlier in my life, when I got out of high school, I didn't get into like any colleges. No one would accept me. I cheated in school on math like my entire, like from 6th grade on. So when it came down to like the SATs, it's a lot harder to cheat on the SATs than like over your friend's shoulder. It doesn't exactly work the same. I don't recommend anybody doing that. And I couldn't get into really any schools. So I went to India for a couple months when I graduated from high school. And I had this experience there of, I was like meditating on top of, this all sounds like really lofty and like very hippie, and it's just the truth. But I was meditating on top of a hill, and I had this very serene, peaceful moment of, like, I meditated. And it was the first time I'd ever done it, where like there was no thoughts in my mind. It probably lasted for like 2 seconds, but I did it. And I'd been trying for a while. Mostly through hallucinogenics I was trying, and that didn't work. So I finally like hit this point naturally, and the first thing that kind of brought me out of this state of 2 seconds of kind of just serene peace was this thought of like, this is so incredible, this is so amazing what I'm feeling right now. This is the truth. This is my highest potential. But you're gonna go back to using drugs and alcohol. And I was 18 years old at the time. And it was a very depressing way to kind of exit out of this moment. And I knew it. Like, I was sober then, but I knew I was going to eventually go back to Seattle, or it was going to be a couple days later or whatever, and I was going to go back. And when I was doing this chanting, probably 8 years later, I had that exact same kind of moment, and it brought me back to that place. And I was like, I don't need to go back anymore. Like, that's it. And I didn't come out of that like meditation space as like, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna fuck up again, and I'm gonna be a drug addict. It was this like, you don't have to do that, and it's your choice. And that was kind of my my moment that I turned it around. And since then, it hasn't been perfect. If you've heard the song Starting Over, that's obvious. But my life changed in that treatment center. And, I really have my life and my craft and my art, everything that is good in my life, my relationships with my girlfriend and my family and my manager, and being present in this moment right here is all due to the fact that I'm sober. So that was that moment.
Amen. Great question. Awesome answer. I think we actually have to take you guys back to, I think you got something to do tonight. Thank you so much for making the time to come and talk to us.
Thank you. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
I appreciate everyone for coming out.
That's a wrap.
Thanks, man.